Thanksgiving was supposed to be loud. Clattering dishes, overlapping conversations, and cousins running under the table. Instead, it went silent. My mother stood at the head of the table, lifted her wine glass, and said the one sentence that cracked the room open like a fault line. I didn't breathe. No one did. Because the moment her glass tilted, so did every family secret we'd spent years pretending not to notice. Before I tell you what she announced, tell me where you're watching from, and what you would have done if your mother dropped a bombshell in front of the entire family. My name is Chloe. I'm the quiet one, the observer, the daughter everyone assumed would just handle things. I grew up learning to read people the way some kids learn to read books. While Emily, my younger sister, shined under every spotlight our family built around her, I learned how to exist in the shadows without being swallowed by them. Emily was the golden child, the adored one, the one my parents called the future of the family. And me. I was the one who covered responsibilities no one else wanted to deal with. That's the thing about being the reliable one. People forget you're watching. And I've been watching for a long time. Including the day, at 19, when I found Mom in her office, panicking over a stack of paperwork I wasn't supposed to see. Papers she snatched the moment she realized I was standing behind her. Papers she told me to forget about, even though every instinct in my body screamed to remember. I wasn't ready then to understand what I'd walked in on, but my mother knew exactly what she was hiding. Fast forward to now. I live in Denver, far from the tight little world my family built. I work in data analytics, a job that rewards the same instincts I've carried my whole life. Patterns, numbers, behavior. I track things most people overlook. And this Thanksgiving, that skill became the only reason I recognized what was happening before anyone else did. Because when my mother raised that glass, she wasn't celebrating, she was revealing. And the truth is this: no matter how smart you think you are, nothing prepares you for the moment your own family decides your life is no longer yours. Stay with me. It gets worse. The invitation came wrapped in a voice that was just a little too bright. My mom called me on a Tuesday morning, cheerful, upbeat, almost giddy, and that alone told me something was wrong. She never used that tone with me unless she needed something or was hiding something. "Chloe, sweetheart, we're doing Thanksgiving at your Aunt Carol's this year. Neutral ground, you know, easier for everyone." Neutral ground. Translation: a place where she could control the narrative without looking like she was controlling anything at all. I agreed, of course. Not because I wanted to, but because whenever my mom's voice hit that artificial sweetness, I knew better than to ignore it. Something was coming. Something Mom wasn't ready for me to see clearly. Seattle greeted me with cold air and gray skies, the kind that made the whole world feel like it was holding its breath. When I walked into Aunt Carol's house, it was already full. Cousins catching up, uncles pretending they weren't arguing politics, the smell of roasted turkey drifting around like a peace offering. Aunt Carol's home had always been the family's truce zone. Not warm, not cold, just neutral. Beige walls, soft rugs, the kind of place where nothing dramatic was ever supposed to happen. But that didn't stop the tension from seeping through the seams. My mom saw me from across the room and hurried over. Smile stretched too wide. Her hands kept fluttering, touching her hair, smoothing her blouse, adjusting the necklace she only wore when she wanted to look composed. She hugged me, but the embrace was stiff, her breath shaky. "You made it. Good, perfect timing." Her eyes darted everywhere. Not normal. Not casual. Nervous. Anticipating. Then Emily arrived. My sister slipped in quietly, her coat too big on her shoulders. She looked exhausted. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back like she didn't have the energy for anything more. She wasn't cruel. Not this time. Just tired. "Hello," she hugged me softly. "Hey, Chloe." And for a moment I wondered if she knew. If she felt it too. The shift, the pressure, the unspoken countdown ticking underneath the laughter and small talk. Because while everyone else tried to pretend it was just another holiday, I could feel it building. The tension. The anticipation. The thing my mother was so desperate to keep tucked beneath the surface. What she didn't know was that I already had the truth folded quietly inside my phone, a message I hadn't told her I'd seen, a message that changed everything about how I walked into that house. And as the night unfolded, I felt it. The shift in the air. The tension lurking under the clatter of plates. Dinner had barely started when Mom dropped the first red flag. So casual, so rehearsed I almost laughed. She passed the mashed potatoes to Uncle Dan and said, "Oh, I've just been so busy getting things processed lately. You know how it is." Processed. A word people use when they don't want you asking what they're actually doing. I looked up immediately. Her tone was too light, too breezy. And I'd heard it before. 10 years ago to be exact. The night she snatched those mystery papers off her desk and told me they were nothing for me to worry about. Her guilty voice always dipped at the end of a sentence, as if she hoped the drop would hide the lie, and there it was again. The second red flag came when Emily asked a simple question, one that shouldn't have made Mom's hand freeze in midair. "Did the insurance ever confirm anything about that reimbursement thing you mentioned?" Mom's fork clattered onto her plate. She tried to laugh it off. "Oh, that. Still waiting on paperwork. These companies take forever." But her eyes didn't meet anyone's. Not mine. Not Emily's. The third red flag wasn't even something she said. It was the way she kept glancing at Emily. Tiny looks full of pity and fear. The kind you give someone who's about to be blindsided. And that's when it hit me. I could feel it. Something old and ugly rising, because tucked in my pocket, warming against my phone case, was the truth she didn't know I'd already seen an email. Addressed to me. From an insurance company I'd never contacted. "Your claim remains under pending investigation. Documents submitted are under verification. Please confirm your authorization for the policy connected to your name." Name. My authorization. My policy. Except, I didn't have one. I had opened that email 2 days before Thanksgiving, confused but calm. Then I read the attached summary. Signatures. A policy number tied to my Social Security. Something someone tried to open a year ago but had inconsistencies. Someone who had submitted documents on my behalf, someone who shouldn't have had any access to anything related to me. No one at this table knew what was about to hit except me. Emily kept trying to follow the conversation, but she was unraveling. "Mom, why would they email Chloe? I thought everything was about my insurance, my claims, my bills." Mom reached for her like she was soothing a toddler. "Sweetie, you've been under so much stress. I didn't want to burden you. Your sister is just misunderstanding." There it was again. That dipped, guilty voice. A perfect match to the one from 10 years ago when she hid the paperwork behind her back. The paperwork labeled with a company logo I now recognized from the email. Pattern. Connection. Confirmation. They thought I wouldn't remember. They thought I wouldn't notice. They thought I wouldn't investigate to be why the time she lifted her glass at Thanksgiving, everyone else heard a toast. But me. I wasn't shocked. I was ready. Mom stood up too quickly, her chair scraping against the floor. Sharp, nervous, metallic. She raised her glass, but her hand was shaking so hard the wine nearly spilled. The room quieted, conversations softening into a confused hush. A trembling smile stretched across her face, the kind she used when she was 2 breaths from breaking. I just want to say something," she began, voice thin. "Emily has been through so much this year. And she deserves something good. Something stable. Something secure." Emily blinked. "Secure. Good. Mom, what are you talking about?" she asked softly. The confusion in her voice wasn't defensive. It was genuine. She looked tired, aching, hopeful. But she had no idea what our mother was building toward. Mom continued, reaching for emotion like it was a prop she'd rehearsed. "As a mother you make choices. Hard choices. You do what any mother would do to protect her child." Aunt Carol paused mid-bite, fork hovering. Uncle Dan leaned back in his chair, eyebrows raised. Cousin Nina whispered something under her breath. The room didn't buy it. They didn't even understand what they were supposed to buy yet. Emily's voice rose, sharper this time. "Mom, what choice? What did you do?" "Oh, sweetheart, it's complicated," Mom said quickly. Too quickly. "You don't need to worry about the details." Emily shook her head, eyes flashing. "Stop saying that." You do." Mom swallowed hard. Her gaze darted around the table, desperate for support she wasn't finding. She tried again, leaning into her script. I did what any parent would do when their child is struggling financially, emotionally, medically. I stepped in. Aunt Carol's voice cut through the tension. Stepped in how? That was when Mom made her fatal mistake. Her eyes locked on me. Chloe understands, she said, almost pleading. Tell them. Tell them why it had to be done. Tell them it was the right thing. The room turned toward me like a tide pulled by gravity. Every pair of eyes waited. Expected. Pressured. But real revenge requires restraint. And silence. Silence is a weapon people never see coming. I kept my expression calm, neutral, almost gentle. I let the pause stretch, long enough that Mom's face tightened with panic, long enough for the family to feel the gap her explanation failed to fill. Then I tilted my head and said quietly, "Why don't you explain it to everyone?" Single sentence. Blight. Deadly. Mom's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Chloe, honey, you know why I folded my hands. Said nothing. I stayed quiet and let the silence work for me. Emily turned fully toward our mother now, voice cracking with frustration. Explain. What did you do? Why are you acting like this? The table felt like it was leaning. All the pressure, all the suspicion, all the unanswered questions sliding toward Mom. Her composure started to crumble, the cracks widening with every second she hesitated. And everyone saw it. Her plan wasn't landing. Her script wasn't working. The family wasn't nodding along. They were watching her unravel. The table tilted toward confrontation. Mom was cornered. Truth doesn't require volume. It only needs the right moment, so I stood up. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just enough for my chair to push back and let the entire table know I was done letting Mom dodge, spin, and rewrite reality. Every conversation stopped. Forks lowered. Even the kids in the next room quieted like they sensed something enormous shifting. Mom, I said. Tell everyone who filed the claim. Her face went white. Not pale white. Like every drop of blood fled at once. Chloe, she whispered, her voice cracking. Not now. Emily looked between us, her eyes widening with fear. Claim. What claim? What's happening? Mom, what did you do? Mom's gaze swept the table, begging silently for someone, anyone, to rescue her. No one moved. Even Aunt Carol, who usually smoothed every fight with a joke or a biscotti, sat stiff and straight-backed, studying Mom's face like she was finally seeing it clearly. Then Aunt Carol spoke, voice firm. If something is being hidden from these girls, it needs to come out. Right now. No more secrets. Mom's breath hitched. And that was my moment that I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. The lit screen glowed like a spotlight as I opened the email, the one she never imagined I'd see. Chloe, Mom whispered, horrified. Please don't, but I'd waited 10 years for this moment. 10 years since that first mysterious paperwork she shoved away. 10 years of watching her manipulate reality like it was clay she had the right to reshape. That I held the phone where everyone could see and began reading. Your claim remains pending review, I said slowly, clearly. Due to inconsistencies in the submitted documents. The table froze. Further investigation is required due to irregularities with a signature tied to the claimant's name. A sharp inhale rippled around the table. Emily's voice trembled. Signature. Claimant. Mom, what is she talking about? I scrolled, heart steady. Controlled. And, I continued. As requested in the submitted forms, the listed beneficiary is Emily Harper. Emily jerked back in her chair. Me. Why would I be listed as the beneficiary of your claim, Chloe? That doesn't make sense. Her face twisted, confusion, fear, betrayal blending into something sharp and devastating. Because, I said, turning my eyes to Mom, I didn't file the claim. Every muscle in Mom's face collapsed. I was trying to. Emily needed help, she blurted. You don't understand. She's been struggling, her bills, her treatments, all the pressure, So you committed fraud. Aunt Carol snapped. Mom shook her head wildly. No, I just borrowed Chloe's name for the paperwork. I planned to fix it before it became official. It was going to help Emily. She deserves a break, she deserves support. Emily recoiled like the words burned. You did this for me. Without telling me. Without asking me. You used Chloe's identity for me. That's not what I meant, Mom cried. You were overwhelmed, I didn't want to burden you. So you burdened me instead, I said quietly. You didn't just borrow my name. You used my identity. You forged my signature. You tried to push a fraudulent insurance claim through using my information. Mom covered her face with shaking hands. I did what any mother would do. No, I said, voice carrying across the table with a calm that cut deeper than shouting ever could. You did what a controlling person does when they think no one is watching. Emily's eyes filled, her voice breaking open. You made me part of this. You dragged me into something illegal and didn't even tell me. Mom reached for her, but Emily pulled back. You were trying to control us, I said. Both of us. The words hit the table like a verdict, and for the first time all night, Mom had nothing left to say. The room was still humming with the shock of the email when I spoke again. Slow, steady, deliberate. The insurance company didn't just contact me, I said. They contacted me to verify information I supposedly submitted. Mom's head jerked up. Panic. Pure, unfiltered panic. Chloe, stop. You're twisting. I didn't submit anything, I cut in. Which is exactly why they reached out. Emily's breath hitched. Why would they need to verify something with her if the claim was supposed to be mine? That was the moment everything aligned. Past and present snapping together like a puzzle edge I'd been holding for a decade. Just like when I was 19, I said. And you pushed those forms into a drawer the second you saw me reading them. A stunned silence rippled across the table. Aunt Carol leaned forward, voice low. Are you saying she forged your signature back then too? Mom exploded. No. I was protecting this family, she shouted. You think I wanted to do any of this? You think I wanted to watch Emily struggle? I did what I had to do. Her voice was too loud, too sharp. A defensive outburst so violent it proved every suspicion. No one defended her. Not this time. Everyone watched her unravel, and for the first time in years, the truth wasn't bending around her version of events. I stayed calm, measured, controlled. Here's the timeline, I said, directing my voice to the table, not her. 10 years ago, Mom handled paperwork with my name on it. I didn't understand it then. But when the insurance company emailed me last week, calling it a follow-up verification connected to a previous submission, it made sense. She kept repeating the same phrases. I continued. For your good. For the family. For Emily. As if that excused her from crossing legal lines. Mom covered her mouth with a trembling hand. I was doing it for her, she whispered. Emily. Honey, you know how hard it's been. Emily stared at her mother like she was seeing a stranger. You made choices for me without telling me. And then, when everything went wrong, you let Chloe take the fall in your mind. You let her become the villain in your story. Mom froze. Emily's voice cracked. After I became the villain in your story, you still kept going. Silence. Crushing, heavy silence. IT wasn't my burden anymore. IT was hers, and everyone at that table felt the shift. The power sliding away from Mom like water slipping through her clenched fists. I took a breath and finished what she refused to say aloud. You weren't helping us. You were trying to control us. You wanted Emily dependent on you. And you wanted me silent. Emily swallowed hard, tears brimming. I don't want money that came from a lie, she said. I don't want anything tied to fraud or manipulation. Her words shattered whatever Mom had left to stand on. Because the family wasn't confused anymore. They weren't debating. They weren't looking for excuses, they were looking at her. The person who did all of this, and the silence that followed didn't protect her. It condemned her. For a moment, the room felt too quiet, like the air itself was holding its breath. Mom opened her mouth to defend herself, but the words caught. Her face went pale first, then her shoulders slumped, and all that brittle confidence she'd been clinging to finally snapped. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. It was worse, because it was real. She sank into the chair like her body had lost the ability to hold up the lies she'd been balancing for years. "Everything I did," she whispered, barely audible, "I did for this family." Aunt Carol exhaled sharply, the kind of sound someone makes when they've run out of patience and sympathy at the same time. Chloe stepped forward, calm. Not cold, not unkind, just steady. "No, Mum. You did things to this family, not for it. And you kept pretending that holding us hostage was the same thing as holding us together." Mom flinched, the truth hitting her harder than yelling ever could. Emily crossed her arms, her voice steady despite the shake in her hands. "I don't want the money," she said. "Not if it came from a lie. Not if it came from hurting Chloe." That was the moment something inside Mom visibly cracked, right behind her eyes. The realization that the daughter she always assumed would stay loyal, no matter the damage, was stepping back from her. "Emily, please," Mom whispered, reaching for her, but Emily stepped away, and the room shifted. The power didn't explode, it drained out of Mom like water slipping through open fingers. For the first time in years, she wasn't the gravitational pull everyone revolved around. Aunt Carol moved beside Chloe, placing a steady hand on her back. A quiet, unmistakable gesture. "See you. Believe you. I'm on your side." Mom looked around the room, waiting for someone, anyone, to defend her. No one spoke, not one person. Chloe inhaled slowly, letting the silence land exactly where it belonged. "This isn't revenge," she said softly. "It's just the truth. And the truth was always going to come out." Mom folded in on herself, sobbing into her hands. Small, broken sounds from someone who had spent too long pretending she was unbreakable. And in that moment, it became painfully clear. She had never been the one holding the family together. She had been the one pulling it apart. Something cracked open, not just in the room but in Mom. This was the turning of the tide. Everyone finally saw who had really been holding the family together. This wasn't revenge. This was consequences. Justice doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it shows up as a single sentence that rewrites everything. When I flew back to Denver, the air felt different. Lighter, cleaner, like I'd walked out of a storm that had been circling me for years without my noticing. My apartment wasn't bigger, the city wasn't quieter, but I was. The weight I'd dragged behind me, guilt, confusion, the constant need to tiptoe, had finally slipped off somewhere between the airport and my front door. 2 days later, the call came. "Ms. Harper," the insurance representative said, "after review, the payout will be divided equally, exactly as the original policy intended." That line, "divided equally, transparently," felt like a verdict. A clean one. Justice wasn't dramatic. It didn't come with handcuffs or shouting. Came with clarity. Emily called me that night. Not crying. Not panic. She sounded sober. Wait. Like she finally understood the cost of being the family favorite. "I talked to Mom," she said quietly. Really talked. For the first time without letting her talk over me. I could hear the shake in her breath. She tried to guilt me. Said she only did what she did because I needed it. But I told her I'm done with love that comes wrapped in obligation. Her voice cracked, not from weakness but from breaking free of something sticky and long held. "I just wanted to say, thank you. For telling the truth before it swallowed us." It was the first time in years Emily sounded like my sister. Not a mirage created by Mom's manipulation, but the real person underneath. Meanwhile, the rest of the family had pulled back from Mom. Not dramatically. No cold exiles or loud condemnations, but with a slow, steady distance. Calls unanswered. Invitations postponed. People who had always let Mom's version of events dominate were suddenly letting silence answer for them. Consequences don't always roar. Sometimes they isolate. A week later, Mom sent a message. Not a phone call, she knew I wouldn't take it. Just a short text. "I'm sorry for how things turned out. I was trying to help, but I see now I hurt you. I hope you understand someday." Not an apology. A half apology. Reshaping. A plea for sympathy tucked inside regret. I thought for a long time before responding. Finally I typed, "I hear you. But understanding and forgiveness aren't the same thing. I need time. No anger. No invitation. just truth. Because healing doesn't require performance. Some things take time. Some truths need quiet. And justice, real justice, is sometimes just choosing not to carry what was never yours. Sometimes the quietest line breaks the pattern. People think the big moments, the scenes, the shouting, the confrontations, are what flip a family upside down. But that's not true. It's usually one sentence, one choice, one moment when the person who was always expected to stay quiet finally decides not to. For me, that moment wasn't dramatic. I didn't scream. I didn't demand. I just spoke the truth in a room where everyone could hear it. And that single act shifted the entire structure of our family more than any argument ever had. Saying the truth out loud didn't fix the past. It didn't erase the years of being minimized, doubted, or assigned the role of the responsible one, who wasn't allowed to need anything. But it did something more important. It stopped the pattern from continuing. Mom's lie didn't win. Her manipulation didn't decide the ending. The cycle of control and favoritism that shaped every childhood memory didn't get to repeat itself one more time with me as the silent participant. People talk about strength like it's volume, like the loudest one is the strongest. But real strength is often quiet. It's the steady breath before you speak. The calm tone when you refuse to be rewritten. The decision to tell the truth even when your voice is shaking, even when the entire room is watching, waiting to see who you'll be this time. Breaking generational patterns doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like refusing to let someone else define your reality. Sometimes it looks like choosing honesty over harmony. Sometimes it's a single sentence that finally snaps the thread holding everything together. Finding my voice after years of being silenced didn't happen all at once. It happened in layers. In boundaries. In moments where I didn't back down. In truth spoken clearly without apology. And here's what I learned. You don't have to fix what came before you. You just have to stop it from owning what comes next. Sometimes stopping the cycle is enough. If this found you at the edge of your own silence, remember, truth doesn't need volume. It just needs you, steady and unshaken, choosing to speak. Family dynamics are complicated. Sometimes the quietest members, the observers, the planners, the ones who never speak first, are the ones who see the most. I know because I lived it. I saw every misstep, every manipulation, every shadow that stretched across the table that Thanksgiving. And I learned that documentation, preparation, and speaking your truth strategically can change everything. If any part of my story felt familiar, share yours in the comments. Tell me what you would have done at that Thanksgiving table. Your experiences matter. You're not alone in navigating complicated family relationships, favoritism, or hidden agendas. Make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next story. This is a space for people who understand that quiet observation isn't weakness. It's power waiting for the right moment. Remember, standing up doesn't always mean shouting. Sometimes it means holding the proof, staying calm, and letting the truth speak louder than anyone's lies. Oh, look around your own family, listen closely, and ask yourself, when does silence protect and when does it enable? Because knowing when to speak and when to act is the difference between being controlled and finally taking control. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And sometimes the quietest line breaks the pattern.